If you're looking for expansive storage for the PS5, you're going to want to install an additional SSD. And not just any SSD will do though, since the PS5 has some pretty hefty requirements for what drives will work when expanding your storage. First, it has to be a PCIe Gen 4 M.2 NVMe SSD with a sequential read speed of at least 5,500 megabytes per second. Now, secondly, it has to have a heatsink in order to keep it from overheating. Now, we've talked before about the Western Digital Black SN850, which has for a while been our top choice for adding some extra storage to your system. But today we're talking about the Corsair MP600 Pro LPX, a new challenger to that crown and quite possibly the best SSD you can buy for the PS5. In today's video, we'll be discussing the benefits of the Corsair MP600 Pro LPX, benchmark a few games to fully test out its capabilities, compare it to the WD Black and the stock PS5. Now let's load up and get started. Now the Corsair comes in a few storage options. The one I have right here is 1 terabyte, but you can pick up one that has 500 gigabytes, 2 terabytes, or 4 terabytes with pricing varying on each. Now those are massive and you'll find it well worth it for those larger game files. Now the Corsair can reach speeds up to 7,100 megabytes a second sequential read, 5,800 megabytes a second sequential write with PCIe Gen 4 technology. Now this is great for those larger game files as I stated and surpasses the PS5 speed requirements. The actual SSD has a pre-installed aluminum heat spreader, which is important since, as we mentioned, a heatsink is required for any SSD you install in the PS5's M.2 slot. Now for the most important part of the video, benchmarking a few games to see how the Corsair stacks up. Now we'll be putting the Corsair MP600 up against the stock PS5 SSD and the WD Black SN850. Now we'll have the comparisons for each up on the screen for you to see how it all breaks down so you can compare for yourself. Now, as you can see here, the Corsair MP600 is able to match the Western Digital SN850 and the stock PS5, meaning both SSDs would be a solid choice for expanding your storage while maintaining the PS5's impressively quick loading times. Now the MP600 loaded first while fast traveling in Miles Morales, as you can see here. To be quite honest, the load-in isn't that noticeable across the board, only very slightly when comparing. With everything we just showed you for the Corsair MP600 Pro LPX, we'd love to know your thoughts. Now the Corsair is 7,100 megabytes a second, 5,800 megabytes a second read-write speed versus the WD's 7,000, 5,300 read-write speed. So while the boxes and each SSD's respective websites, have these numbers to show you, there's really not a noticeable difference between the read-write speeds while booting up and actually playing games. Now that means it all comes down to price, and at $154.99, the 1 terabyte Corsair is a little bit cheaper than the 1 terabyte SN850 with heatsink. Now, in other words, a cheaper price tag for equal if not slightly better performance, which is why the Corsair MP600 Pro LPX is IGN's recommended PS5 SSD. Regardless of which one you go for, you're getting larger storage space for your continually growing library of games, and that's always a benefit to the PS5's limited storage space without. Now, if you've upgraded your PS5 to this or another SSD, please tell us about your experience. And for more on tech, please check out our PS5 accessories video. And for everything else, keep watching IGN.